Hi, my name is Piyush Pradhan and welcome to the e-content video platform. I'm from the Department of English. Our today's topic, it's not just about a simple human communication and the skill of communication, but how that communication skill is going to be rather informed at a workplace. That's what we are going to look at throughout the slides. Let's begin. We are going to look at the part of the information communication through corporate curriculum. We are not just going to talk about our sender and the receiver and what is being done to the message, etc. Rather, we are going to look at the advanced version of how your own communicated feature can be in advance informed not only by yourself, or it can include any other superior at the office. Now, as I said, we are looking through the corporate curriculum part of the perspective. So according to a corporate curriculum, we're looking at the use of the communication, how it is used in an organization as a very key element. And that same communication is how further designed and shapes the overall structure of how an office should act efficiently. We have to see that the primary stage of information communication should not just be confined to one person and just one person only. It should actually include the group of or many within the office parlance. We are going to look in this slide some primary study of problems and preferences that the individuals actually has to come across at a workplace. We are taking this information as very unique because it always accounts for the overall accountability of how your senior wanted to share some information from you, and by the time it reaches you to be communicated, whether their channels were followed in a proper way or not. That's what we are going to look at. So, we're not just going to have a hearing or listening process, but we're going to take that as a part of how to make a communication and how to observe things related to it. Now, as you can see in this second paragraph, information communication acts as a process for optimal advantages for the people to whom this communication serves as a substitute to the allocation of decisions which should be taken by the higher authority and, as I said a short while ago, to be channelized down below. Now, we have to see that when any communication consists of statutory information included in it or attached in it, it should be done in a stipulated time period. Always remember that. Now, I have further taken this information communication through business correspondence. Now, in business correspondence, things are utilized both for written and in the form of verbal messages shared as very genuine feature among individuals, or it can even comply some groups to which it has been facilitated. Now, in a nutshell, we can overall make out that information communication is actually acting like an art. It is in fact like an office science that mixes lots of subtle nuances that people have and that further defines the strictness of the business ethics and all the office cultural norms. Hope my audience have understood through this simple definition of information communication. Now, pushing along to the second slide, in this we are going to look at the use of informed communication at par the international issues. Now, there's a culture in diversity, and when it comes to border-to-border use of the language usages, you can see that there are different unique sets of communication skills or talents which is used by the people who are the part and parcel of that business world. Thereby, their business is conducted in very diverse areas. That is to say, it's not only the complete geographical position of that place, but at the same time, different people using their part of the languages. Then, as we are aware that there are cultures that varies in different places, and so as the informed communication will also vary automatically. Further, we're going to understand the exhibition of cultural traits that different cultures use when they want to present themselves, and they want themselves to be heard very positively. Lastly, we're going to look at the use of the communication by its maximization of effectiveness. If your communication is not effective, that means there certainly exists a language barrier, and one has to work on that barrier to the best of his knowledge and skills. Now, having done with this, we have now reached to a very crucial portion of communication that is called as the interruptions in communication. Now, there's a million-dollar question to some of the individuals in an office, whether men or women, that how do I exactly stop myself in interrupting while I am having a communication and trying to share my feelings and emotions, where we're going to look at various forms of disturbances being seen in communication. These disturbances act like an offset with various sequences of communication components, and automatically it has the power to challenge the overall process of communication taking place among individuals. Now, what is included in these interruptions? The first is, of course, the loss and distortion of any kind of unwanted sound coming from the background, interrupting a person to understand what's going on. Second, having less than superb communication. Now, this part of the point I would like to take up when I'm going to bring in the recruiter who wants to recruit a fresher, an applicant who has just appeared for the job. And when that interview is taken up, if you are not good at your communication skill superbly, then you are being treated not to that extent what you need to be treated as. Rather, you have to go for some different kind of trainings by some special communication coaches organizations try to keep for them. Then comes bullet point number 3, considering language as a source of inadequacy in the process of communication. And lastly, that interruption that easily surpass one's feeling and emotion, and that the person remains very confused. How he or she is going to communicate, and what are those factors or elements that are interrupting my communication power. So that is what is noticeable at the workplace. Hope my audiences have understood these interruptions in communication. Now, in this part of the slide, I've actually divided this information communication through different forms of representing stages. Now, for understanding a regular business communication or correspondence, I'm going to discuss 6 references of English levels. And I believe whether it's a question of domestic job, any job which is done at the state and national level, And for the international level, indeed, you need to have the proficiency with English language. The first level is called as the elementary level. Second is the intermediate. Third, upper intermediate level. Then comes in the fourth level, we have got advanced level, followed by proficient level, which talks about the human's expertise in the communication skill. And lastly, special attention to be paid as at par the level of proficiency when it is taken up for the interview selections of any candidate. Now, how it is represented, we're going to look at in the another slide. So, as I said, we're going to now make some classifications of these stages. Please look at the bottom, these English test levels, from level A1 to level C2. A1, in fact, is considered to be very low level, that is, the level consisting of basic or elementary use of the language. But as we go further from level to level, by the time we reach to the C2 level, a person is extremely proficient. Now, as you can read through these 3 bullet points, one can understand and use familiar everyday expressions and very basis of the phrases that someone wants to aim in order to satisfy a person or his or her need with very concrete type of stability when it comes to communication skills. In this part of the stage, one can even learn to introduce himself and others by asking and answering the questions. That includes personal details, such as someone's lives, people that they know, the things that they have done, and other kind of frequent sentences. Then in the second bullet point, we can look at the main points of clear, standard inputs that someone wants to give. That includes some kind of the work and school or leisure kind of encounters one has to come along for the communication skill. It describes experiences that involves events, some kind of dreams and hopes and ambitions, etc. And lastly, we're going to learn to understand the chief ideas, that how, when the level is exceeded, it is going to create a kind of complexity. Means a person is now 100% through to understand the complex words, that is to say, the business glossary, the kind of grammatical constructions, etc. By the time the person reaches to that stage, that is a degree of fluency and spontaneity of using these sentences and to make these regular interactions with your subordinates within the office parlance. So users are targeted with this language in such a way that there should not be imposed any kind of mind stress or strain. Otherwise, the another person that whom you are communicating is going to take the things otherwise, and that will be quite risky or harmful. Now, as I'm continuing the same classification of stages in this part of the slide, you all can have a look and understand the gist of how there's a wide range of informed communication patterns which go through all the way from the higher level reaching up to the lower level. That is to talk about things that displays demand, longer use of the texts, and recognition of implicit meaning which is involved when the communication skill is taking place. And by this stage, we see that the language becomes more flexible and effectively helps at par the social, academic, and professional purposes or usages. In this part of the stage, that is stage between B2 to C2, we see that the words and sentences are produced clearly. They are well structured. The text is very detailed. The subjects perhaps can be complex, but the office people can understand it very well. But of course, those patterns are very controlled patterns or structures. So it goes very minutely into one's ears in order to process and balance those words and structures with proper use of the connectors and the other use of the cohesive devices that two individuals can use for positive communication. And so on, this last bullet point that talks about nearly everything that we have covered under the finer shades of informed communication skill. In this part of the slide, we are going to look at the use of the information communication as one-to-one and one-to-many. These are the features where we use this for cracking up the interview, to get a job, to maintain a professional life, to leave an impression on a stranger, to actually display enhanced learning skills, to explore the other part of the individual's world, how different and diverse it can be than yours, than to actually take the communication skill when it is used by travelers traveling from one country to another country, than something that displays confidence indeed. And of course, the use of the communication structures which are representing any kind of business and to deal with any type of client, whether indigenous clients or it can be international clients. So the question arises, what determines effectiveness of one-to-one communication? Well, it starts a one-to-one interaction with a very friendly tone. It focuses on the purpose of the conversation. And thirdly, concluding the interaction helpfully and very positively. So that's how we have to learn to understand how to manage this stuff. Lastly, we have got this communication training, which is being done by involving a communicator, and he is going to instill the professionalism of how to communicate, how to train your tongue to speak with better pauses and a rise and fall of the pitch. You need not to actually sound so harsh and hard, but you have to speak very swiftly. So that benevolent approach of a person towards that particular speech is something which defines this positive communication. Then how that communicator also teaches you to target only the imperative features required within the business parlance. How that communicator is going to help you understand and learn the tailored game plan of the workplace. Now, I use the word game plan because everything is target-based. It is like a game with lots of puzzles. Those piece of puzzles needs to be taken up together in order to make it as a final residue of what needs to be done and at what time it needs to be done. So you keep in your mind the proper clients and the proper working perspectives. Then that communicator is going to help you turn your communication skill into more accountability of the communication skill. So if one has an accountability partner, for instance, and he visits you time to time, there are 95% chances that you will accomplish your positive goals and pursue things in life. Means, in a nutshell, we can say that communicator is going to do the job of that extra life push that you require. Then lastly, that communicator is going to help you in the eradication of blind spots. Now, in eradication of blind spots, we are looking at the use of this communicator, which makes your everyday work very easier as cent%. And this actually help you to point out your blind spot in communication. This will also help to eliminate all kind of those problems that you come across with. Thank you so much for this patience and I'll be there with the next episode soon. Goodbye to you and Godspeed.